Hi there. My name is Arlo Jones. I'm an undergraduate student at WSU. This is my first semester taking a web development class. So I know how to code, but I haven't had much experience building websites yet. Um, this semester, I've gotten to practice a little bit, and I wanted to demonstrate my kind of method for learning web development and also how to jump in and get something going without knowing fully how everything works yet. So this video is mostly gonna focus on the process and tools of getting an example simple website going. To start, we're in Visual Studio Code here. It's just a development environment that will allow us to write the HTML and CSS code that we'll need, as well as run that so that we can see how it looks. HTML defines the structure of the website that we're going to be building, while CSS describes the styling of that website. To start with, we will need an extension called Live Server. You can add it to your Visual Studio Code environment. It will allow us to actually run the website when the time comes. Right now, we're in an empty folder on my desktop called Recipe Website. The tutorial today will be to build a website that can display a recipe for us. To begin, we need an index.html file as well as an index.css file. So let's create those. Index.html and index.css. Easy. But where do we go from here? Like all good developers since November of last year, the place to begin, honestly, is talking to ChatGPT. So here I have a prompt. I said, hey, I'm making a web page that displays the recipe, but could use some help getting started. Can you generate some HTML and CSS for that web page that includes sections for a title, picture, descriptions, list of ingredients, and instructions? Spelled something here for the web page. So let's see what chat is able to give us. Okay. So right now it's producing some HTML documentation for us. Up top here, it kind of defines what things are supposed to look like, and it creates the link to the CSS. We'll probably need to rename our CSS file style so that this can find it. It's got a header, it's got a section for an image, it's got a description of that, and then it has additional sections for the ingredients, for the instructions, just like we specified. Here in the CSS, this may look like a lot, but it is going to help us kind of style the web page so that it looks good. ChatGPT tells us to note that it's a basic template and we'll need to customize it, which is perfect. That's what we want. We're just trying to get started. So let's snag this. Actually, we'll copy the code. And we will put this into our HTML file. Perfect. And we'll switch over to CSS. And we'll snag this. And honestly, let's just see what that looks like. If we go back to the HTML and hit right click, we're looking for open with live server. There we are. We should need to allow access. Great. So we have a very basic web page kind of already set up here. What I do notice is that everything is kind of shoved to the left and is using default fonts and styling. So that means that our CSS is not being read. So let's go make sure that the connection there is working. Right now it says style.css. We want it to look at our index.css. And if we save that, I believe, yeah, there we are. The website has updated to use that that styling. So now we have kind of a bar here, etc. So let's see what else we need. We'd like to have a picture up top. Right now it has this placeholder that it's sourcing from a link. If we were to add a file here, that's not what we want. We'll do it manually. I've snagged a picture of a file previously on our desktop. It's called chocolate chip cookie. That'll be the recipe that we're using. We're going to copy it, and we're just going to put it into this recipe.website folder. And there we go. It has appeared right here. So now we'll change this link to instead reference that. And we'll save it and we'll see if it's populated here. Perfect, it has. So this is a good start. And we can, update this description by changing the HTML as well as list real ingredients and list real instructions, which is a really good start. But I'd like to show some other tools that can help you be productive and efficient. The first is Bootstrap. Bootstrap has a whole bunch of pre-built snippets, which are code that has been written in advance to do all sorts of things. And by using Bootstrap, you can save yourself time not needing to regenerate and refigure out how tables or how a carousel of images will work. You can import what they've already made and then customize it to what you're working on. So in order to do that, probably the easiest way possible is to include via CDN. Essentially, it's just going to pull everything that's needed to run Bootstrap in through these links. So opening up the quick start to see what that's supposed to look like. We have this kind of introduction here, which looks similar to ours, but not quite the same. If we go and look at our head section, we have this link to the index.css, but we don't have some of the other things specified here. We don't have the meta character set, the window sizing, etc. So we'll snag those just to make sure everything is in order. Yeah, I have it in the header. We'll make sure that we have that HTML lang equals English. That here. I believe they had it in quotes. Yep. And then here are the set of links that we want. We want to snag this one. Also just in the head here. And we want to snag this one to put it in the body. right there. Hmm. I'm not sure about the body closing like this when we have another guy here. Um, I'm going to remove that. I think that will work. Let's save it and just make sure that nothing has broken. Go here. Uh, we're looking okay. Okay. So now that we have the necessary parts for Bootstrap, we can use one of those snippets like I was discussing. An inspiration for this website was the Martha Stewart blog, mostly because their recipe web pages are very kind of simple and straightforward. For right now, we're not going to play with creating a header with links. That'll be something we can try later in another tutorial. But I liked the kind of simple title here, an image. They give some information, a little description, and then ingredients, instructions, just like we're trying to do. But this part is interesting to me. We should see if we can find a way to make something like that, some information, before we have our description of what we're making. Um, so we're going to use a Bootstrap snippet called tables. There are a variety of tables here. I like this dark one. So now that we have included Bootstrap, we should be able to snag this HTML and put it into the HTML up here and get a copy of that table, which we can modify to suit our needs. So I'm going to put that table right after we have our image, but before we have our description. So it's going to go right here, and we're just going to paste that in. Got a table. Let's save it and see if that worked. Yeah, we've got a table in there. The styling is such that it is taking up the whole width of the screen, but we can try and play with that later. First, I'd like to modify it to be more like this prep time, total time servings. So if we go into the code, um, the way this is kind of laid out, they label what the columns are here, and then they insert rows down below it. So we want the first column to be prep time. What were the other ones? Prep time, total time, and servings. Um, and servings. We're going to delete this one, which should remove that column. Now, each one of these kind of sections defines a row. We really only need one more row. So we're going to delete these two. And within here, since we only have the 3 columns, we're going to delete this one. Okay, what kind of information do we want to put in here? 40 minutes, 2 hours, 5 minutes, servings 8. It'll be different based upon what kind of recipe you want. I haven't actually prepared a chocolate chip cookie recipe, but we'll use those numbers for a placeholder just to see if our table updates appropriately. So we'll say 40 minutes, 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 8. So we're going to save that, and hopefully the table has updated. Yeah, it has. So things are looking pretty okay so far. We have the title, we have our picture, we have a nice table of information, we've got this description section, we've got our ingredients. The last thing that I wanted to do was kind of a third technique aside from using Bootstrap and ChatGPT is to look at the example website itself and see what kind of structure they're using, because that can help you get a feel for how things ought to be done or organized. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to just right-click, go to Inspect, and if you click here, most browsers will have something like this. It puts you into a mode where when you mouse over things, it opens the HTML bit that cares about that. So if we were curious how they organized their kind of ingredients, it looks like they have a box that kind of contains all of it, and then they have header within it, and they have this list of each of the ingredients. And it looks like within the list, there is an element for the point, for the 3/4, for the type of measurement, and then for the description of the ingredient itself. So that's an interesting thing to note. From there, we can click and we'll be able to see what we were looking at. So they have this unordered list, and they give it a class, which is more or less a reference to the CSS styling. But we can open it up and see here are each of the things in the list, and then we can look at the first one and see kind of, yeah, here's the 3/4, here's the cup, here is the description. And so if we're trying to figure out how to make a list ourselves, this might give us inspiration. If we go back to the way our list is right now, we have the same kind of unordered list with a list element, but they're just the ingredients themselves. And so we can see how you might break it down further by looking at the HTML. Additionally, what you can do is you can click on a given element. I have to toggle this again. Something like this. And you can scroll down below to see what styling was used. So when we're in here trying to modify our styling, it might be difficult to know what each of these things do. However, we can play around a little bit and just toggle these things on and off and see, what that's about. This padding element kind of creates a border around the actual content itself so that we have that nice square. And this background color is kind of what sets it apart. If we didn't like it, we could change that or not include it in what we're doing. Because we're using a table, it's a little bit different than what they've done here. It looks like what they've done is kind of set up a grid for themselves and just filled it out. We can toggle the kind of margins that push everything and space it out. And one of the other things is the way CSS works. If you go and look at the index.html, there's kind of this nesting structure that happens. We have a body, and within the body we have a header, and within the body we also have main. Within main we have a section, we have a table. And when you go to CSS, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Because a section was within our body, this section contains both the margin bottom 30 pixels CSS styling, but it also contains things that it inherited by being within Body. So it inherited this font family. Looking at the elements over here in the styling, we can see something similar where this section has inherited from Body, and we can toggle some of those on and off as well. We can see what the default font would look like versus what they've set it to. We can change the sizes. We can change all sorts of things. And so when you're trying to get a website going, this can be a useful way to figure out, what kinds of settings do I need to include to make sure that things sit the way that I want them to, look the way that I want them to, etc. I think that about wraps up what I wanted to talk about. This is really just a way to get in, get your feet wet, and learn by doing as opposed to by reading, because web development is so broad. There's so many places to get started. This is just a really basic tutorial to get you started. I hope it helps. Thank you for watching.